Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play Cast, episode 183, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm Mike Byrne, aka Magicman, your host. We've got games, we've got new games, we've got older games, and we've got interviews from two companies that kind of deliver their messages just a little bit differently. But joining us to talk about all these great things, one of the interviewers himself, Mr. Jason Winter. How are you, sir?
So how does this work? Do I look this way? Because it's been a long time since I did one of these casts. Is it
that way? That
am
way?
I,
No, right?
Is this thing on?
It's on. It's on.
Okay. All right.
It's on. It's been a while. Last week we had some snafus equipment-wise with one of the hosts, and news-wise it didn't make sense to really do one anyway. So, but everybody enjoyed an extra week off, which normally doesn't happen, so enjoy it. Also on the line from Free to Play Weekly, Mr. Zach Sharps. What's up, Big Daddy?
Nothing much. Just got done with my finals, so... Well, I have one more final, but two of my classes are done.
How'd you do?
So, two of the classes, I have a 4.0, and the other one I probably do 4.0 as well, so... Pretty good.
There you go. What are you studying?
I'm studying finance right now.
Oh.
I have a year-ish left on my degree, so...
So you're going to be the guy designing pay-to-win cash shops. All right, let's go.
Yes.
Let's get started with the news. All right, first up this week, the latest news, NetEase's Revelation Online will be coming to the West, and this announcement kind of came out of nowhere. Wasn't even one that I think too many people were looking at. If you knew about the game and you've been playing on the Chinese servers, things like that, then you probably were waiting for a Western release, but if you didn't know about it, it flew under the radar, and now it's coming west, courtesy of My.com, our friends with Armored Warfare and, of course, Skyforge. But also Mail.ru, depending on where you're at in the world. And but no payment model announced yet, which kind of weird for companies historically that stick to the free-to-play aspect. We'll talk about this in a second, but first I wanted to get your guys' impression of the game itself. Not only do we have a trailer that they released, we have a ton of footage from Steparu that you can check out on Steparu's site from almost a year ago playing on the Chinese servers, and just a quick YouTube search is going to get you some extra videos on the topic as well. So plenty of stuff for you to view on actual gameplay. We're not just going by a trailer here. Jason, you're up first. You were the one that said, hey, whoa, wait, what is this news? What's going on here? Yeah. What were your initial impressions?
Yeah, I mean, like you, it seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. And as I was reading through the description and everything, I thought they're aiming for everything. This is the sort of thing that we said is kind of dead now. That big MMO that tries to do PvE and PvP and big open world stuff and guild battles and crafting and all that. We just don't have those anymore. EverQuest Next is dead. They're all gone. And this one kind of seems like it's trying to do all of that. And the other thing is that it really seems to be keyed for a more Western audience with a lot of the things they're putting in there, like not having gender lock classes. I actually took some notes there. I read or watched another video so I could find a little more. Their open world PvP is such that you have kind of like a griefing debuff, so that if you die while you were PvPing someone or shortly thereafter, you could lose a piece of equipment. So it's not just open world gank everybody. There's a little bit of that mechanic worked in there. They have a lot of questing you can get, or a lot of experience you can get through quests. So you don't just have to grind out mobs endlessly. Very non-Eastern in a way from what we've been used to. And obviously they've been in development on this for quite a while, but maybe that is something that they recognized a few years ago and always had the intent of bringing over to the West to try and make that kind of model of game. So it's kind of interesting and something that I'm actually almost looking forward to. At least I'm not turned off by it yet, which is usually I see Chinese MMO, and that's going to be my first impression. Like, oh, forget this. Take one look at it and cast it aside. But this one I'm sort of still like, okay, it looks kind of neat. It sounds like they got some interesting gameplay elements, so I'll keep being interested in it for the time being.
Yeah, it looked visually impressive. From a not only cinematic standpoint, which I like, but the gameplay itself too. Zach, what was your initial thoughts?
I am definitely looking forward to it. I mean, it's a game that kind of reminds you of Ion in a sense because of its flying. You could fly everywhere in the world. I think it's not limited at all, and it's It looks like it's soft targeting combat from what I looked at as far as looking at Staparu's gameplay. Not fully action, but actiony enough. It really depends on how good the animations are, how good it feels, whether or not that soft targeting combat system is going to
Yeah, you actually had
really
multiple options as far as the control scheme
Yeah.
goes. So
And
kind of,
that's
I kind of read that like almost like we saw with we'll get to this in a little while, the Riders of Icarus closed beta where you had a choice, but it was still just a soft action combat. So
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a bit more fine-tuned, though,
I do too.
because Riders of Icarus was after the fact. This is more, it was built with it. Because I remember seeing the combat the same when Staparu did his original videos, and I was originally intrigued by the game. I never thought we would see it here in the West. I'm happy that we are going to be seeing in the West. And as much as I've given Skyforge a ton of crap over the course of its launch until now, I'm actually kind of happy that my.com is publishing this game because Skyforge, the one thing I was not really that mad about was the monetization model. I thought they did fine in that regard. I was just really irritated with a lot of the gameplay mechanics. So as long as they continue the trend of what they did with Skyforge, don't really do too much in terms of monetization with Revelation, I think they're going to have a good game on their hands, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this one too. I think we're all kind of in the same boat of wow, an Eastern MMO that we really didn't anticipate coming west, all of a sudden is coming west, and it's got some things that I may be interested in checking out. And obviously, we've got a lot of comparisons going on right now since we don't have hands-on. We're just going by videos and the impressions of people that have played the Chinese version of the game. Comparisons brought up here already. Ion, as far as gliding and flying go. Combat system, I've seen comparisons to maybe a Blade and Soul type system more than a Riders of Icarus type action system, which the way it plays, that looks to be a fair assessment. Some Black Desert Online as far as big open world goes. So there's lots of the good things. It feels like the good things from other MMOs, they kind of grabbed and said, all right, let's put all these things that people liked together. Of course, the one big question mark in the air is payment model. Traditionally, I mean, it would be very easy to go, oh, it's mail.ru, it's my.com, boom, this is free to play, no questions asked. Much like we've done with Nexon in the past, just to be surprised with Lawbreakers becoming not a free to play title. Just like we've done with some other games in the Blizzard franchise. Overwatch probably going to be free to play given what Blizzard has been doing lately and the genre. Boom, it goes buy to play. Even Black Desert Online, right? This is free to play in the East. It's definitely going to be free to play when it comes here. Nope, boom, buy to play title as well. And interestingly, with these two companies where you would scream free to play, their own FAQ, Jason says, not decided yet. Now, normally I would say that's just PR speak, and we don't want to talk about it yet, but it's going to be free to play. But I've got to wonder if maybe seeing what happened, particularly with Black Desert Online recently, if they're not thinking, you know what, maybe this would be better served as a buy-to-play title in the U.S.
Yeah, I think they are definitely looking at what other games have done, not only Black Desert, but maybe even some of the other stuff you mentioned that's not necessarily RPG, related. Yeah, I don't think it's just a stalling tactic. Like they know already, and they're already working on the cash shop and whatever. I mean, they probably are working on the cash shop, even if it's buy to play. There's going to be one, of course. But yeah, I think they are taking their time, going to see how it all plays out, and they've got a few more months before they get into beta and really have to, iron down that final decision. So, yeah, it's probably a good decision for them to wait until they're sure to see what kind of reception it gets. Maybe even see a little bit how the commentary goes and so on, and just see how those games pan out.
One thing's for sure, we'll definitely be seeing founders packs. I mean, that's or pre-orders if they decide to do that. What do you think, Zach? Is it free to play, out of the bag, no problems, no questions asked, or is there a possibility we see my.com foray into the buy to play universe?
I think it's smart from them to at least gauge a response, especially since they sent out trailers. I think I saw the first one on GameSpot, which is the only reason why I knew it was even a thing was GameSpot released a trailer. I'm like, wait a second, they're releasing this in the West? And so I think they're just trying to sort of see what people's interest levels are, and then they're going to make a decision based off that. I would say they're more leaning towards free-to-play, But all I gotta say is this, if this game does end up being buy-to-play, I think it's time for us to cover buy-to-play games. I mean, the writing's on the wall if that's the case. But I don't see it happening. I just don't. Like, it seems like a game that would play so well as a free-to-play that I don't think buy-to-play would really garner much support, even if there is a good response of, oh, I want to play this. I think most people would say, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to wait. So...
There is the danger that we speculated on with Black Desert Online, of course, of you have an unknown IP coming into a market where you've tested in previous markets free-to-play working just perfectly. Why risk alienating the audience with a buy-to-play tag? But I think... we've had the conversations on this show. We've had the conversations behind the scenes about moving into covering buy-to-play too and just kind of ostracizing subscription base, which means we wouldn't cover, 4 games? So, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, if I got to make a prediction right now, I'm going to go buy-to-play. I think that my.com... particularly is looking at Black Desert Online and what happened there and how well it did, and thinking that they have a product that's just as unknown IP-wise, but they think is just as polished performance-wise and gameplay-wise, that they go and publish under the buy-to-play. Gun to your head right now, Jason, free-to-play, buy-to-play.
Gun to my head, I would probably lean more towards buy-to-play as well, but I could really see it going either way.
Zach?
I would say I'm leaning towards free-to-play, but if it's buy-to-play and it's relatively cheap, I'll still buy it. So,
all right, predictions sure to come back and haunt us, just like they always do. Hey, apparently WildStar is going to make it to Steam. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, wow.
I don't know. There's still a whole day left. Hey, Landmark launches in 2 days, right?
Right. And I guess as you're watching this on June 9th or later, there you go. WildStar's on Steam. And if it's not, something went catastrophically wrong that we'll be covering right after the show on the site.
Yep.
The Play Police coming right up.
Right. All right, moving on. We did some interviews in the last week or so. I did one with Trion Worlds with both Scott Hartzman and Peter Ju on Atlas Reactor switching buy-to-play, a title we didn't even mention in the previous comment, and boy, isn't that newsworthy that we didn't mention it. Jason had an interview with, we thought was kind of going to be a formality, just some generic PR stuff on Gigantic from the team at Motiga that now partnered with Perfect World Entertainment to get Gigantic to market. And I wanted to talk briefly, Jason, about the interviews themselves and some of the thoughts, but I also wanted to use this as like a master course on, holy hell, interview like this, don't interview like this. So first off, let's go with the more recent of the two. Gigantic, Motiga. You had a chance to talk to Motiga's CEO. Let us know what happened there.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty. He was pretty honest about it. He said things weren't going real well, which we all knew about because there had been talks about the layoffs, and you can even look back at like around the start of this year, end of last year, start of this year, some of the statements that were coming out from them. They really seemed down, really seemed depressing in a way. And then once this merger, once this partnership went up with Perfect World, their tone in their press releases on their website and so on just seemed to change dramatically. Like they just got new life, it seemed. So, yeah, you could definitely tell that was the tone they were setting. But they couldn't shy away from the bad things they knew would happen. And Chris Chung told me that we almost had to lay everyone off except for just a few people. Despite that, they kept chugging along. They said a lot of people just stayed in the office even after the layoff notice had been given because they really wanted to work on the game, and they've been able to bring back a lot of those people and get them back into the fold, have them be full employees again. So it's definitely very optimistic, I think, coming from them now. They've always been kind of optimistic up until like around, like I said, late last year. We'd hear a little bit here and there about how things are coming along fine, but because they were so quiet for so long, you just got this idea something was kind of building. We got some of that. And now they've come back and shown that they really are still committed to doing this, to doing it pretty well, and to doing it more or less independently. Perfect World's not just dictating to them terms of everything they must do. It seems to be a pretty good relationship for both parties. So, nice to see them recovering and hopefully coming along to get some more of a beta later this year.
On the flip side, now I need to put a big disclaimer on this one to start with. I have a ton of respect, and some, I'm sure, viewers of the free-to-play cast are going to tell me it's misplaced respect. But I have a ton of respect for Scott Hartzman over at Trion Worlds, both when he was there originally and when he came back. I've had the privilege of interviewing him and chatting with him multiple times over the last 5 or 6 years for different outlets on different topics at different conventions, things like that. Brilliant guy. Brilliant guy. Which is why it's so hard for me particularly to see Trion Worlds struggle in certain ways and with certain decisions, because I know that Scott is an exceptionally smart guy, and maybe the decisions aren't all his at some point. But so I had the chance to talk with Scott and Peter Jew, the executive producer of Atlas Reactor, and just kind of say, hey, you know, why the whole about face on free-to-play after all this testing, and, you know, these are the concerns that the community is bringing out, like maybe you're going buy-to-play because you can't release freelancers on a schedule that would can be conducive to that type of free-to-play model. They said, no, that's not the case. You know, they went through why they did it, and I don't want to focus on that. That's not the point of this discussion. What I do want to talk about, though, Jason, and as soon as I got the interview questions back, I pinged you on Skype about one or two of the responses. I was like, you have to be kidding me. So I'm going to read this one in its entirety here, because I was really curious when they made this first announcement about going buy-to-play. They said they didn't think it was sustainable, and so I was wondering, what metrics did they look at? And so the question I posed was, I'm sure the team at Trion looked at their own metrics and maybe even the performance of other free-to-play titles in the Trion Worlds portfolio when making this decision, but the producer's letter specifically calls out sustainability. What metrics made the team feel free-to-play wasn't going to be sustainable? And this was Scott Hartzman's answer. Exactly right. Not just in our own portfolio, but outside in the larger world of free-to-play as well. If you look across the most successful free titles, you see one of two primary mechanics that are absolutely critical to free-to-play being viable as a business model. Zach, in case you're falling asleep, I'm going to reread that sentence again, because this is important. If you look across the most successful free titles, you see one of two primary mechanics that are absolutely critical to free-to-play being viable as a business model. And I'm going to ask you a question after I give you these two things, Zach, so ready that 4.0 grade point average up. 1, games whose monetization is largely built around a random mechanic for power. Think Hearthstone card packs is Scott's examples. 2, games whose monetization is largely built around time delays and paying to skip them. Think all of the most popular mobile games. But then he also puts a third in there, even though he only said 2. But here's a third.
That's where Zach needs his college education
Right.
to figure that
Games
out.
whose monetization is largely built around paying to speed up or skip a power progression. Think many core gamer PC free games. Knowing that those are the 3 that are absolutely critical from Scott's point of view, and that Atlas Reactor has none of these, I want to ask you, Zach, does Rift have any of these?
I don't know. I think I might have to finish my degree for that answer.
Maybe you could argue that number 3 somewhat applies to Rift, you know, largely built around paying to speed up or skip a power progression. If you think about somebody that's really interested in jumping into the current raid, buying some of that gear, but you don't really skip it. You just kind of bump yourself up. But it certainly doesn't apply in number 1. There's random mechanics for power. They have lockboxes which aren't power-based at all. No time delays. You can get all those items in-game. Does Arcade have some of these things?
Arcade, you could argue that.
Yeah, I'm not terribly familiar with Arcade, so...
Talking about popular games, and the most popular game on the market as far as free-to-play goes is League of Legends. Does League of Legends have any of those? No,
And
not
that
really.
was back when I did an interview, a preview event with the team. I said, this lends itself to League of Legends monetizing very easily. And they were, yep, absolutely all about it. We want to change things up with the GG boosts a little bit, which I thought was a pretty cool idea as far as the boosts go. But man, it was just... I looked at Defiance and just Trion's entire stable... Well, Trion, specifically Trion's stable, and I was like, Jason, I don't think any of their games really fall completely into one of these absolutely critical models. And I don't think many games in general fall into completely one of those critical models. Most games take a little from column A, a little from column B. So how critical are they? The other thing that I thought was just, and I sent this to Jason right away, I was like, this might be a bit... oblivious, I think was the word I used. My question was, what about the concerns now on audience size? Atlas Reactor is a bit niche in its game type already. Does buy-to-play make that potentially limited audience even more limited? Scott Hartzman says, we don't see it as niche. What? What? So
these kind of games are all over the place.
Yeah. So I did this whole interview, and then I read yours, where you're getting the CEO saying, "Dude, we laid off everybody but 3 people. This was why we made the decision for Windows 10 exclusivity. It served us what we thought was going to be better at the time. Boy, we're really glad we got this better deal now because we think this is going to serve us better." I mean, they didn't badmouth the Windows 10 exclusivity deal, but they said, "Yeah, hey, what we got now is better."
Honestly,
and then the team all working the entire time. Most of the team still not collecting a paycheck, but coming into work in the hopes that this will launch again. Talk about passion.
You know what that is, though? That's having a robot as your PR and a human as your PR.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Oh, absolutely. That's the feeling that I got.
Yeah, I remember watching a video, actually, right around when they did the merger, or I keep wanting to say merger, the partnership with Perfect World. And Chris Chung came on it for a while and just sat with the dev guys, and he just sounded great. Like, he sounded like one of the guys. So that sounded a lot different to me than, what we're getting out of Scott Hartzman here.
Yeah. I was kind of disappointed, too, because I thought, this is a chance to, I asked if, in hindsight, do you wish that you didn't say anything about free-to-play? And they were just like, well, yeah, sure. Come on. But, hey, man, the Motiga interview... Awesome interview.
Thank you.
Very, very nice stuff from them. And, dude, I was so impressed reading, that we didn't have to actually reach out to the people we laid off to offer them jobs, because most of them were still in the damn office just working on this because they believe in it. I really hope Gigantic does well, specifically just for that team. Just for that team that put the passion into it.
It doesn't look like a horrible game. It's just it seemed like
Jason's played it quite a few times and thinks pretty highly of it, actually.
The thing is, I haven't played it since I guess a little after PAX back last year in 2015. And just from what I've been still reading, is they haven't added a whole lot since then. They still only have the 2 maps, I think, which is that's a little bit something. It's like, what have they been doing that whole time?
So, well, now they're building
and trying to stop the doors from closing.
Well, now they're building a 64-bit client, so everything's
exhibiting at conventions, spending all their money there.
Right. All right, before we move over to the bombs, we're going to do a couple reviews/thoughts on some first looks we posted in the last week and a half. We've got 3 to do. I'm going to skip the first one for a second, because I think it's the one that the 3 of us will have the most to talk about. Let's jump to Energy Heroes. God, shit.
Oh, I got my notes.
So if you don't know what Energy Heroes is...
good for you.
Yeah. It's kind of a third-person shooter / MOBA, cel-shaded animation. If you've seen Overwatch, it's a lot like that, except not playable. And... Sorry, was that mean? Was that mean? It really wasn't. That was the thing. Like, I understand early access. I understand alpha. I understand beta. I've been doing this shit for years. I understand it. I'll even say in a first look, this is beta, so I'm giving them a little bit of a pass on the frame rates and things like that are spiking and dropping, and we all 3 of us do it. all three of us, when we're talking about a game on here, will say, well, it was beta, I had a little bit of lag spikes, or this particular quest was bugged and I couldn't progress, but I'm sure they'll get it fixed. We give the benefit of the doubt for these stages. But when you go into a game that is absolutely almost unplayable, it doesn't even have your character profile page able to be accessed, but the cash shop is fully up and running and fully loaded with mercs and skins and everything and ready to go. No founders packs, you just go and buy. There's something off there. And this is, Zach, you pointed this out to me before the show, so I'm going to take the time to read it. Ange Lobia on YouTube commented on my first look. This game looks like shit, but you don't look like you're good at games. You play MMOs. MMOs don't really take skill. They take time, so you should never review something that requires you to react to anything. You need a game that requires you to tab target. Stick to that. All right, so before I facepalm dramatically here on that one.
Tell you that it's a developer. Just tell you.
And before all the people that play MMOs chime in on the comments of MMOs don't take skill, we'll skip that for a second. Yeah, I'm generally bad at third-person shooters and MOBAs in general. I didn't even get a chance to display how bad I was at those types of games in this first look, because it took forever just to record the tutorial in a watchable fashion with usable controls, and then I sat for 40 minutes during European prime time on European servers and couldn't get a 3-person team. Your comment is null and void, and so is the game. Jason, what did you think of this one? You liked it, probably.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. No, I mean, just the one thing I saw was control. What were the controls? ZQSD.
Well, yeah, it wasn't a QWERTY keyboard, so now us QWERTY users get to feel the burn of being in Europe not using QWERTY.
What? Just no. That's all I have. I just saw that part, and that was enough to make me nope out. I don't care.
So you've never seen what is it? I know I'm gonna get the acronym wrong because I don't. Azerty, is that what it is? AZERTY.
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah, I think it's Azerty.
Well, but that and even you trying to rework your keybinds to make them usable.
Oh my god,
and
that
not
was
having
awful.
them show up on your.
That was awful. Rebinding things, and that the first time I did it, right? So the first time I did it, I logged in. The tip came up, and I said, "Oh, okay, it's not for a QWERTY keyboard. Let me change it." I went to my options. WASD were already configured correctly, so I changed like 3 or 4. But then I must have changed one to be something else, and the game actually locked up on me when I had to press that key. So I went to trigger my one ability, and then I couldn't even get into the escape menu to close it. I had to Control-Alt-Delete, shut it down, and get back into it. It was a fiasco. I probably spent 3 hours on what was, a 12-minute first look?
Yeah.
Just getting the footage down and everything. It was really bad. I can't recommend that you try it at all. Even Zach, who enjoys a good third-person shooter in a MOBA, I don't think you can even recommend looking at this right now. And I also said in the first look, if it gets a lot better, I'll be the first to apologize for the developers, but do not waste your time and money on it right now.
I think your quote summed it up really, really well. It makes you lose your will to live.
Yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, it just looked like a very, not even half-baked, I would say a completely raw game. And that's not something that a lot of people expect nowadays, for one. Now, back in the day when there was a lot of games like that would invite some people in, that's fine, but would they ever have a cash shop? No, they would never have a cash shop. It would be one of those things like, we're not even publicizing that we're doing alpha testing, but please come in and test our game because it's utter crap right now. We want to refine it and make it better, and we want your help to do it. Hey, here's some, bones, throw you some bones to come do this for us. Nowadays, it's like, let's just release the most unfinished title possible, open up the cash shop, make sure that's functional, and then we're good to go. We might make a couple grand off this game, maybe.
I want to give the benefit of the doubt on these games as much as I can, Jason. You do the same things in your first look, where it's just like smaller team, you know the amount of work that this takes. Maybe it's a labor of love for them and they don't have financing. That's why they have to get the cash shop up first. Okay, fine, we get all of that. Just give us the information. When I go to your website and the support and the contact us stuff on the forums, when I can't even access that to let you know about bugs, it makes me question how much feedback you actually want here.
Being small is an excuse for being bad.
All right, moving on. Fantasy Heroes Online, not a ton to say about this. Cute little 2D MMORPG. If you're looking for something like a Tibia or an Ultima Online, a kind of throwback. It was kickstarted and launched in May. Whatever. I'm not going to give it a score because it's not something that I would play all that often. But I could definitely see, like, particularly Tibia fans maybe getting a group of people together and jumping in this one, Zach.
Yeah, it just looks like a game that's for those people looking for a more nostalgic type MMO. It's not a game that I would play. I'm all for nostalgic sort of features in terms of their mechanics and whatnot. But when you also incorporate the art style on top of that, I have a GTX 980. I don't really want to see a lot of pixel arty games, especially not for MMOs. I'm done imagining what the world looks like. That was so 5 years ago. I want to see the world in their vision and not have to sort of imagine what it looks like in a 3D space. That's just my feel.
You GTX snob. What about you, Jason?
I'm kind of with Zach, but I'm not into electric stuff either. But I will say, of the 3 games that we're talking about today, this is the one I probably looked at that I thought I might have the most interest in. If only for that kind of...
Wow.
If only for the kind of feeling of, like I said, feeling a little bit like some of the old RPGs you used to play, Legend of Zelda type. That's what it kind of reminded me of, just in the most vague sense. I'm not saying it is Legend of Zelda. I'm just saying you go around and that overhead view. I wish the sword slashing was a little more obvious. I know for a while there you were like, "Am I doing something?" Because
just
kind of did this.
It was, I even said it's very highlight, so that was a little throwback for you NES players back in the day.
I mean. Yeah, this is one where I will say, okay, they got a small dev team. They need more polish. They need a little more, just a little something to make it seem a little more modern and a little better, I guess, in a way. But overall, a neat little title.
But all the menus work.
At least the menus work.
So that's good. Last but not least, I don't want to go too in-depth with this because I know we talked pretty in-depth about my preview of Riders of Icarus, but the first look is up for Riders of Icarus. Closed beta test 3 has ended, so now onward and upward to open beta, which begins July 6th. However, if you bought a Founders Pack, you have Head Start access, depending on what pack you bought. That will start in about 3 weeks here at the end of June. I still am enjoying the game. I played, I think, 4 or 5 of the days of closed beta. I put in about 20 or so hours. I did enjoy it. I completed my collection in the first zone, including the spider mount, after farming up the damn tome, which I finally got. But I did enjoy it. I have a bomb that we'll get to on this one. I have concerns with the game. The action combat is the thing that I'm going to comment the biggest here because it was an unknown in the preview because closed beta test 2 did not have it. The action combat is clunky. I didn't particularly like it, Zach. It was still tab target. It wasn't even soft action combat. It was still tab target, and if you turned your target totally away from what you had locked onto with tab, you were still going to hit it. There's no dodging or anything like that that's going to keep you out of things. No response dodging. AoE, of course, get out of the fire and you're fine. The action combat really didn't do much for me, and even when I took to the skies near level 18 or so or 15 or so, and was doing some of the aerial combat with crossbows, it really didn't add too much for me. I hope they smooth it out and improve it. But I'm still generally excited for Riders of Icarus. I'm happy with the Founders Pack that I bought, and still not, after sinking 20 hours into this beta and probably about 15 into the previous beta, I'm still not so worn of the game that I don't want to play it at launch. I will be there on early access day one. Zach, you actually got a chance to jump in, which you didn't when we talked about this last show, so I'm going to give you a little more time than I just took here.
Yeah, so I got a chance to jump in. I found a giveaway for a key. Just decided to pick one up. I was like, why not? And I hopped into it with sort of, the impression that I would enjoy the taming a lot more than I actually did. I lasted probably about 2 hours before I uninstalled it. And it's not that it was a bad game. I could see some people really enjoying it, especially because there's a lot of taming that you can do. I mean, even the entry levels, there's a lot of stuff you can tame, a lot of stuff that you can sort of look into. The problem is, especially for myself, since I've played so many MMOs at this point, it just felt like another uninspired MMO with that one thing that's different that you're not going to care about once you reach endgame, because the rest of it's so generic that it's just gonna you fade away over time. It
Right.
just it bored me to death. Like I just didn't like the combat as much as I hoped that I would. If the combat was better, I probably would still be playing it now. But the soft targeting didn't add much at all. I tried 2 different classes. Each of them felt very floaty in their own rights and very locked down as well, which I did not like at all. And then also on top of that, I saw a ton of ways for them to completely botch the monetization. And
Yeah, we're
when
gonna
I
talk about that when we get to the bombs on my
yeah,
side.
and when I get to only I think level 6 and I start seeing enhancement stuff having go from a very high to a high chance of success, that just completely turns me off as well, because I talked about this on my stream, that I could see at the end game this being a nightmare for players, and they're probably going to throw out some stones on the cash shop, be like, hey guys, if you buy this stone, it's going to be a much higher success of you enchanting your weapon. And I don't want to deal with that anymore. So
Yeah, hang tight to that thought.
yes.
Hang tight to that exact thought. Jason, yeah, you'd rather play Fantasy Tales Online.
I have the exact same thing I was going to say as Zach, that it's just regular MMO. They just decided to add one thing to make it look
And that's
different.
what I told you it was. I said it was. I listed when we talked about it last show. I said this is generic, this is generic, this is generic, this is generic, but somehow I like it, and maybe I'm dumb.
I just have to say one thing really quickly about the game itself. The cinematics were at least good. I enjoyed the cinematics.
It does
I
look
wish,
nice.
yeah, the cinematics were at least pleasant to watch, especially the sound effects. I mean, you could tell that they actually spent time with it. A lot of games, like when one of the main characters does like a kick, you hear a huge like explosion sort of sound effect, and it sounds really, really awesome, like you would expect from like an anime. A lot of games don't do that. They just leave like a little tiny like kick noise in and just call it good.
Yeah.
So at least they added some good cinematics.
Somebody
but
got all
overall,
pissed at me in the comments for saying that it looked good. They were like, "This
Yeah.
looks like shit." I was like, "Okay." It actually
Aaron-
looks really good. And
Yeah.
I particularly liked, if you probably didn't get there, but your first time into Hakene's Crossing, when you're running through the square and you come out the other side and the castle's in front of you, I mean, it looks really well done. Although I wish the kind of glare/flare effect wasn't all over everything. Let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Oh, yeah. Speaking of Riders of Icarus, I'll go first. Huge A-bomb to Elune in Riders of Icarus. It's going to be the single most purchased thing in the cash shop. I'm making an assumption right now, by the way, because we haven't seen the cash shop for the game yet. But I do know some of what goes on in the East with this cash shop, and particularly Elune's, and I hope that they do not bring some of this stuff west, because God, it's gonna suck. So Elunes are the stone currency. In the Founders Pack I bought, which was the $90 one, you get 400 of them to start with. In-game, you generally get them, and again, a lot of this is what I've seen in Eastern. I don't know, and in beta, I don't know how much of this is gonna stay the case. You generally can get them in-game through daily quests and through certain achievements. So you do have the ability to farm them in-game. Of course, it's not going to be anywhere near as fast as you could just go buy them from the cash shop. And they are used for fucking everything. They're used for everything. Your auction house slots expansions. They are used for your bestiary so that you can collect more familiars. Yeah, a key point of the game. You can only collect so many before you don't have any more room in your stable, and each slot opens up one at a time and gets progressively more and more expensive. until I think it caps out at 35 Eloons per slot, and then just runs the board from there at 35 each. They're used to revive upon death. They can be used to reset your taming points if you don't want to wait until tomorrow or level up to get an auto refill. They are used to reset dungeons. They are used to increase, at least in the East right now, they are used to increase your chance of success and are almost a requirement for your plus enchantment that you were just talking about, Zach, particularly once you get beyond plus 10. So yeah, there's a lot of room for them to screw this up and make me not want to play it. Because I know my first 400, that we get, which are character bound, by the way, they are character bound in the Founders Pack, so that makes me assume that when you buy them from the cash shop, they will also be character bound, not account bound. I'm going to sink those straight into opening up more slots for familiars. So boom, my 400 are gone already, and I won't even open them all. So God, A-bomb to that if they really, really screw it up. Go ahead, Zach.
I'm going to give a dub-bomb to going back and giving games another shot. And the game that I gave a third shot to, which is very rare that I'll do, but I've seen a lot of trailers pop up, and I'm like, did they really improve this game, was The Elder Scrolls Online. And I know, buy to play, but it's a game that I really wanted to succeed. Even from my early videos about it when it was in the closed beta, I typed up at least over 1,000-word essay to them about different bugs I experienced, different things they need to tweak. They completely ignored all of it, of course, and they launched the game with all said bugs that I discussed in the damn survey that I sent them numerous times. They had, I think, 2 or 3 of them, and I sent them each time. Completely ignored it, so I was pissed about that, but I still played it for about a month or 2, ended up quitting it, came back to it when Tamriel Unlimited happened, and I still had my class completely broken. Completely broken. I would do a charge into an auto attack, animation would stick probably about 1 out of every 2 tries. How do you just completely botch that? It's not a really difficult thing not to notice. But now I came back and tried it. No issues whatsoever with my class, which is amazing. It's amazing that it took them that long to fix it, but it's amazing that there's just no issues that I've seen thus far. The optimization seems a bit better. It still is rough around the edges in that regard. It has gamepad support now, and I've just had a good time. I've logged into it multiple times. I thought I was going to log into it once, maybe play it for a little bit, and then uninstall it, but I've actually enjoyed it. So definitely give games another shot, especially if they appealed to you at the beginning and maybe they just lacked something. Give them another shot, even if it's a third. You never know what will happen.
Mr. Winter.
Don't talk to me about the inventory system in that game. But I'm going to give a dub-bomb to Payday 2. This is a game that we really ripped on a few months ago when they had their big thing about how they'd said originally, we won't do microtransactions, and shame on you if you think we ever will. And of course they put them in. Game got absolutely trashed. But then a couple weeks ago, the developers actually bought the game, bought it out from their publisher, and said, we're getting rid of those. We're getting rid of those microtransactions, the drills you needed to open the safes. We're not going to have those anymore after this update goes live. So kudos to them for doing that, for getting rid of that. And if you look at Steam, when they first announced that, their overall rating just dropped like a stone. Since then, it's actually been a little longer, so I'm kind of questioning this. Now, you know that Steam does a thing where they'll show their last month's worth of...
Right.
Guess what their last month percentage, what their approval is?
Probably better.
60.
Higher.
70.
Higher.
80.
Higher.
90.
Higher.
95.
Higher.
98.
Higher.
99. 100?
Yes.
Get the...
Wow.
Wow.
Which again, considering they only made this change about 2.5 weeks ago, I think I don't know how that works exactly, because you think some people would have still been pissed off. But yeah, 3,678 reviews. So 100% positive in the last 30 days.
Wow.
So
good on them.
About face. From the viewers, Fortek says A-bomb to my internet as well, because Q's internet was having problems last week. Booney's net sucks. Dub-bomb for grinding mobs in Tree of Savior. So relaxing after a hard day and you don't want to think about much. Plus the pow sound they make puts a big dumb grin on my face. Go ahead, Zach.
UDK Facey says the bomb for next week goes to action mode, adding it to Riders of Icarus. It's the perfect thing I was looking for. And yes, I was in the first 2 betas.
Oh, then let us know how you thought it was implemented. I was disappointed. Jason.
Tommy Berrien says, hey, Magic Man's description of Riders of Icarus piqued my interest, and my wife also likes mounts and companions, so it's probably something we can play together.
God damn it. I knew you were going to do it, too. I purposely put that third, and I was like, all right, I got to have Jason go second. And then I forgot about it.
A-bomb to MOBAs in general, just because I hate them.
Oh, man. Volley and
Mounts
Spike.
and companions, okay.
Luca Dornjack says, A-bomb to Star Trek Online. Haven't played it for almost 6 months, only for me to come back and find it in a state even more better than before. Even more better than before. The new story quests are superb, and they keep putting stuff in the game to make it easier for people to get better gear and not lag behind veteran players. Also found an awesome fleet with people who helped me get from 0 to Captain Awesome in a few weeks. Nice going, Perfect World, Entertainment, and Cryptic. Keep up the good work. Lots of good stuff coming from Star Trek Online in the last 2 weeks.
I keep wanting to get back into that. I really do, and I just don't find the time.
Go ahead, Zach.
Speaking of Star Trek Online, Wilfredo Rivera says the bomb to Star Trek Online for being the only sci-fi MMO for now that allows both space and ground combat, even if the ground combat sucks. Plus, having a customizable ship is pretty cool. Now, if you only have things like autopilot and craft benches on your ship whilst traveling to your next system.
More love for Star Trek.
You know, Perfect World tried to give me support for Star Trek Online when I was playing Neverwinter, so maybe they were telling me to go play Star Trek instead of Neverwinter.
There you go. Jason.
Etria says about the ROI UI size Riders of Icarus UI size comment, no slider and no option for it, just rearrange elements in the last beta.
Yep, so we were right when we were talking about it last show. Question of the week last week. Should I be looking forward to Riders of Icarus even though it's a bit traditional on most fronts, or am I crazy and overly optimistic? What's your outlook on the game? Niabari says, question of the week, you're nuts. 2 words, Dragon's Prophet.
Ow.
That's not entirely unfair, although Dragon's Prophet...
A lot of other issues.
Not that Riders of Icarus' combat is all that great, but Dragon's Prophet was abysmal. Go ahead, Zach.
Future Griffin owner says, question of the week, how could any former Pokemon master not be interested in this game? Tab targeting will be a godsend when you're up till 4 a.m. leveling your 234th dragon. Got to have them in every color after all. The real world for me is with the cash shop. I'll rage if those items for the higher quality pets end up in the cash shop in a lockbox.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Like the required special items for some things. All the ones I've come across so far are found in-game.
So many ways for them to screw that game up. So many ways.
Go ahead, Jason.
All right, GOH Gamer says, well, there really aren't many options for MMOs right now, so I'm looking forward to it. I know that isn't a good reason, but I'm starved for an MMO. Yeah, there aren't many options. There are no MMOs out there at all.
You got Bless coming soon. Well, maybe not soon, but UDK Facey, Riders of Icarus is one of the top 10 MMOs in Korea. I'm sure it's there for a reason, Mike. Well, that makes me feel a little better, but I also looked at the rest of that top 10 list, and maybe it doesn't make me feel as good as I thought it would. Go ahead, Zach.
Was Energy Heroes on it?
Yeah, it was number 1.
Kevin Sharp says, the mount taming grind, though, sounds a little Pokemon to me. Not sure I like it or not.
It is. Jason.
And Malik Endear says they need some cooler races like Terra Online, for example. Like the Papori, less than 3.
That's hard, you goof. Question of the week. What payment model should Revelation Online have when it comes to the West, and why? Do you want to see it buy-to-play? Do you want to see it free-to-play? What's your prediction? We've made ours. Now make yours in the comments below. And don't forget to put your weekly bomb down there. Da-bomb for something good. A-bomb for something bad. Until next week, where can everybody find you, Zach?
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Zach Sharps. I might be doing a video discussing random games soon. It just depends if my schedule allows me to do said things. So definitely be sure to hit up my Twitter, follow it, and I'll be sure to link you to that video. Then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yeah.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Winter Informal, and I've actually gotten back into doing some streaming lately. I've been playing a lot of Overwatch mostly on my stream, but I'll get into some other things later once that addiction has subsided a little bit. So that's over at twitch.tv/JasonWinter. Come on over and check me out.
I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1, or come on over to MMOBomb.com where we've got the articles, the first looks, the videos, the podcasts, the giveaways. We've got it all there for you. Come check it out. Until next time, gang, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.